Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Not welcome back, this is my first video. Hi, I'm Perry. Even though the channel's called Books Aren't Boring, it sounds like a brand, I'm the only person in it. I'm going to be looking at different books that you see in school literary settings and then talk to you about why they're actually really interesting, even though a lot of people think they're boring. I have notes right here, so if you see me looking down, that is why. Disclaimer, I am not a professional literary teacher. I have a lot of tabs in this book, but they're not color-coded and they don't really mean anything specific. So if this goes against anything your actual teacher says in real life, take their word on it, not mine, because even though I've gone through classes with this book, there may be things that I kind of forget sometimes. So why do I think this book isn't boring? Well, there's a lot to unpack here. There are basically three main characters that you have to be aware of, and then everything else kind of branches off of them. So first up, we got Samuel Hamilton. He's kind of the patriarch. He's the guy who's always like the good influence in the story. He's the one telling other people why everything they're doing is kind of like bad. But he's just really nice, really inventive, and poor. Number two is Adam. He is hard to describe, but in case you didn't notice, Adam and Eve, biblical allegory, that is East of Eden for you. It's just a giant biblical allegory. And number three is Cathy. Now, Cathy is supposed to be like Eve, but she's evil. Eve? Evil? Another thing about Cathy is actually that she goes through three different names throughout the book, but we're just going to call her Cathy for simplicity. Just know that she goes by Kate, Catherine, and Cathy. With that, I hope we can get into the book with some basic knowledge of the characters. So first I'm going to start off with Cathy, actually. She doesn't come into the book until like chapter 8, but she's still really important and kind of an interesting character. So Steinbeck basically describes her as a monster, but not a physical monster. She's very pretty, but she is crazy and doesn't do anything unless it benefits her. So, for example, she burned down her parents' house with her parents in it. She killed her parents. You could consider Cathy like a psychopath, not Shane Dawson psychopath, but like actual cold-blooded killer, because she kills or tries to kill multiple people throughout the book. At the end, she gets her comeuppance, though. It's this whole thing about like her hubris and how she never accomplished anything in life and that kind of thing. And that's basically Cathy. Next we have Adam, biblical allegory guy. He is the character we kind of start off with. Technically, Samuel is the character we start off with, but he is given a backstory. While it starts with Adam and his father. Now, Adam has a brother named Charles, and he is not a great person either. He's not as evil as Cathy is, but for reference, the A's in the story are generally good people, and the C's are either morally ambiguous or they're evil, which you'll see later on. There's kind of like a family curse involving Cain and Abel. You have to understand it because of the whole like trying to kill your brother, I am not your brother's keeper kind of thing. So his father's name is Cyrus, and he's not a great guy. He forces both of his sons, Adam and Charles, to train with him because Cyrus had gone into the military for 1 month and he got discharged, but he acted like he had been in the military for years, which kind of goes into the whole thing where he forced Adam and Charles to kind of live out his own life. And Charles is the younger brother, but Charles eventually tries to kill Adam because he thinks that his father likes Adam better because he sent Adam into the military or something. Next is Samuel Hamilton. He is very important, as I previously stated. He's an Irish immigrant who came to Salinas Valley, and he's poor, like dirt poor. They have to get land in a place where there's no water, but they're happy, and that's what's important. He has like a ton of kids with his wife. The theme of like money and happiness comes back a lot in the story, so it's important. Now we get back to Cathy. So, as I said, Cathy like burned down her house and stuff, and then she runs away. Then she gets to a house. Now, it's not any normal type of house, and I'm not trying to get my video taken down, so if you want to see what kind of house that is, check out my blog. So Cathy runs away to this house, and she seduces the owner of the house for his money, and then he finds out about that and tries to kill her. She doesn't die, or else this would be a really boring story. She crawls away from the house, and she finds herself at Adam and Charles's doorstep. So Cathy is like sick and stuff, right? And then we realize that she changes her name at random so that she can get protection from people and stuff. And she doesn't trust Charles because his name starts with C, not really because he thinks like her. But Adam is sweet and naive and everything she needs to be protected from Charles. So she like cons him into getting him to marry her, and then Adam proposes to Cathy. And then that same night, Cathy goes away to Charles's room. So for the longest time, Adam has wanted to move to the Salinas Valley. That's where Samuel is, which is why he comes along later. And they finally moved to the Salinas Valley, and we find out that Cathy is pregnant. Spoiler alert, it's not Adam's kid. Adam has decided to buy this giant plot of land with a ton of houses and get it renovated and all of that good stuff. And along those lines, Samuel is hired by him to come and find water on his land. We also find out that now Adam has a servant, and his name is Lee, and he is Chinese American, but he's born in America. So there's this whole subplot where he speaks in like the pidgin dialect, and that's so that he can be understood without being ignored completely, because if they expect the pidgin from him and he speaks in pidgin, then they'll listen to him. That's basically a quote from the story. Now, back to Samuel's involvement on the land. So this is where Samuel, Adam, and Cathy's stories really start to intertwine. So Samuel is drilling holes in the land to find water, right? Totally normal thing to do. And he is called to meet Cathy. Now, Cathy is really pregnant, but like she doesn't look like it other than the fact that her stomach is huge, which is also another cue that she's kind of otherworldly. She's not like another creature from a land, but she's just like weird. So Sam realizes that she's not normal and just feels off about her. He gets chills around her, but Adam's like, la di da, everything's perfect. I love my wife, even though my wife does not care about me. So then the kid is born. Well, actually, kids, there's two kids. Cain and Abel curse comes back because you see two kids, Adam and Charles, two kids, two unnamed twins. They remain unnamed for like a year because Adam is so sad about, wait for it, Cathy shooting him in the shoulder and leaving him as soon as she gives birth. If this isn't a clue that she's actually crazy, if this isn't a clue that she just doesn't care about anyone, I don't know what you're thinking. So after Cathy shoots Adam in the shoulder and runs away, she runs away to another house, this time with a lady named Faye. Faye is really sweet and kind, and Cathy's like, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of that. So she basically makes Faye trust her completely and have a great relationship with her, to the point where Faye writes her into her will. And her will basically consists of, I will give everything to Cathy, which is exactly what Cathy wants because she's like that. So once she gets to the point where she believes that Faye is no longer useful to her plans, she decides to continuously poison Faye slowly until she dies. And you see how methodical Cathy is here, because not only does it start after Cathy gets drunk and reveals her true inhibitions to Faye, she also just straight up poisons her. Like at the end, there's like this whole scene, at the end of like this subplot, there's a whole scene where she poisons the food that they're going to eat, and she poisons both of them because if it was just hers, it would obviously be Cathy poisoning Faye. But because Cathy is also poisoned, she magically is able to tolerate it, but Faye is the one who died. And then at the end, after Cathy dies, she pretends like she forgot about the will until another girl from the house was like, hey, remember all that money that you were given? Isn't that kind of important that you pick it up? And Cathy's like, I just completely forgot about it. Like, no, sis. So now we're back to Adam. Remember that he didn't name his kids for a year? Well, Samuel and Lee, his servant, stage an intervention for him. So they have him read the Bible, and he has read the Cain and Abel story, and he's like, no, that doesn't sound like me, even though it totally sounds like him. And then he thinks about names. Now, they suggested Cain and Abel, but like, who would want to name their kid Cain? Because, you know. So instead, they think of other names that coincidentally start with C and A, and they settle on Caleb and Aaron. Caleb eventually goes by Cal, and Aaron's name starts out with two C's and ends up with one C at the end, which has a reasoning for, but it's not super important to the story. So Cal is the dark-haired, kind of brooding boy who likes to break the rules sometimes. As you will see, the C's are morally ambiguous or evil. And Aaron is a nice boy who's blonde like Cathy and is just appealing to like everyone. Like everyone likes him. And Cal really doesn't like this. He always resents his brother for it. Even though he wants to protect his brother, he also completely hates his brother for being more liked than him. Samuel then dies. Aww. Which is the end of normal in the book. I can't exactly explain what that means, but just know that Sam was the father figure of everyone in the book, and because he's gone, his wisdom remains, but like the wildness continues. Here's some more fun Cathy facts. So after Sam dies, Adam's like, you know what, I'm gonna go to a house. So even though he's told not to go to Cathy's house because she owns it now, he goes there, of course, to see her because he's not over her. Like, she's completely and utterly horrible for everyone around her. But he still goes there anyway, and they meet. And he kind of asserts that he's not afraid of Cathy anymore. And Cathy's just like, interesting. And then they leave. That's basically the summary of the entire conversation. Oh, yeah, and Cathy tries to get him beat up because that's what any normal person would do. So then there's a whole interaction between one of Samuel's kids and Adam, and then we get into Cal and Aaron's story. Now this is where it kind of picks up for them. So we got Cal and Aaron, they're out shooting rabbits, I think, and they're arguing about which rabbit is theirs. And then they go inside, and lo and behold, there's a girl there, their age, about. So her name is Abra. She is kind of quiet, and even though she's not actually like that, she's a very sweet girl, but also kind of feisty in her own way, which we'll get to because there's a whole thing at the end. So then Abra goes to a special playhouse with Cal and Aaron, and they kind of taunt her, or at least Cal does, because that's what the C's do. They are scared of other people, so they taunt them. And you kind of sense something between Aaron and Abra, just because, like, you know, they're both A's, and Aaron's really nice, and you know what? If you sense something, you would be correct, because later on, they make a pact to get married. It's a whole thing. And then later, Abra feels stifled by Aaron, and you know what? She turns to Cal instead. And that's a whole plot twist, even though it's not really, because Cal is supposed to be the curse breaker, so instead of being a bad person, he decides to be a morally ambiguous person instead. Then we find out that Cal and Aaron don't know that their mother ran away after shooting Adam, and they just assume that she died because that's what Adam told them. Cal finds out earlier than Aaron, and Aaron finding out that Cathy is his mother sends him into like a horrible depression. But for the most part, Cal is the one who's more all-knowing because he is the one that just knows how to get information out of people. Then there's another subplot about Adam deciding to sell lettuce, even though it's not that important and not that interesting. All you have to know is that he tried to sell lettuce, but the business tanked, and he went thousands of dollars into debt. Also, Charles is dead now. Now we're nearing the final part of the book. So now they're moving to the actual, like, Salinas City, where the rest of the story will take place, and it makes more sense because that's where Cathy's house is located, that's where the schools are, that's where Abra is. There is one point where Lee leaves the house, but he comes back in a short amount of time because he wanted to open a Chinese bookstore, but then discovered that he didn't really want to do that anymore, so he came back. There's a whole scene in there that can be described as Mommy Issues the musical, because basically Aaron is deprived of a mother, so he tells Abra to be his mother, which is a really kind of odd scene, but also just shows that he needs to know more about his mother, even if it kind of destroys him on the inside, because it would at least mean that he was at peace with his mother. Then Cal finds out about his mother through some people talking in the town, and then he spends the next couple weeks just stalking her. And funnily enough, she does notice because this is similar to her own practices, but she lets him stalk her for a couple weeks, and then finally she's like, "What the heck are you doing?" But she lets him come inside anyway. On the complete opposite side of things, Aaron is now admitted into the Episcopal Church and is completely religious. When Cal is finally done stalking Cathy for a number of weeks, we find out that Cathy's not in the best shape. She's become more overweight, or at least bloated, and everything hurts for her. She's still pretty, but she's lost a lot of that shine. Even though she is kind of all-powerful throughout the book, eventually she does lose that power because she abuses it. This is one of the most important scenes in the book, though, because it's basically Cal saying, "I don't have to be you," even though he thinks that he has her, Cathy, in, like, his blood. He can choose not to have her actions affect how he acts. Aaron goes away to Stanford and writes to Abra, but Abra doesn't like the kind of person that Aaron is in his letters because he's not the same person that he is in real life. In real life, he's super religious and didn't talk to her, and he hated that. But in his letters, he's like, "What's up, baby?" On the other hand, Abra is looking for a father figure, which she finds in Lee, and they have a very weird relationship because he doesn't really get asked about his own personal life. It's enough to have her question, like, what she's doing. Then at the end of the book, basically, Abra decides that Cal is better for her than Aaron. Then Adam dies of a stroke. His first stroke comes from learning that Aaron decided to enlist in the army, and his second stroke came from Adam learning that Aaron had died. And that's basically the end of the book. Now, that was kind of a summary, but I hope you found something interesting within it. For example, I personally find the conflict of the C's and the A's really interesting because it kind of is the Cain and Abel. Even though the story isn't exactly replicated because no one dies because their brother killed them, even though Charles did try to kill Adam at the beginning of the book. There's the good versus evil, there's the poor versus rich because of how Adam has a lot of money but Samuel doesn't. And there's just a lot of theming of blank versus blank, and it's just really interesting to see how Steinbeck has, like, made those into a largely thick book that's like over 500 pages. I won't lie, there's still some parts that are kind of uninteresting. The Hamilton family stuff it's important, but it's not as important as the main thread of Adam and Cathy and Aaron and Caleb. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any suggestions, please either comment below or go to my website and give me a suggestion in the suggestions box, and I will acknowledge it and likely put it on my list. Again, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you like the content. I'll likely be posting every other week. Bye! Thanks for watching.